Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Iron Man issue 24. Really colorful cover right here, really kind of cool. And the thing is, it really doesn't happen in here, but I still do like the cover. And we're one issue away from 650 Iron Man, so it this definitely lays some groundwork for certain things that I'm interested of kind of seeing. So we had seen that pretty much Tony's on the back foot. We got Spy Master involved. We've got Carl involved. We've got Cobalt Man with the Mandarin's rings. And that's not good. So we see what's kind of going on here as Iron Man's pretty much going through and telling us what's kind of going on in his head. And of course, he views that we live in a world of cowards, small minds who are afraid, and ruled by those who refuse to risk anything of their own, and all these things with weapons, and he's like, fuck this shit. He's an engineer, he's a builder, he's going to dismantle what currently exists, as they're pretty much telling him to stand down and just fucking, like, let it go. And Cobalt Man's like, I heard these two had you cornered, I had to see it for myself. And he's done being polite about this. And we do definitely see that repercussions going through the rest of this issue. He will talk with people, but he's not going to be super nice. It's not like he went in that kind of Axis inversion where he went complete dickhole Tony Stark, but he's going to try and help people. He's going to try and do it his way. He might not say things in the nicest of ways, but we're definitely going to see this go through. As we see him pretty much decide to put on his armor, which we get a cool boot-up sequence as he then gets blasted. And he's talking about how he's not like Bruce, Steve, or Thor. He's just a dude good at racquetball. And he's like, I got my spleen ruptured, but it's not a broken neck or heart or a fucking relapse. It's not even a bad night's sleep at this point, as he puts on the helmet, and we get our cool kind of action shot right there. And this is really kind of cool. Like, I like seeing the rain going on with the stealth suit, and then the red and everything. It just works really well to showcase how he's like, fuck this shit. Yep. And he's just like, yeah, it's part of the fucking job. And Cobalt Man's like, if that's the way you want it, Stark. And then Carl calls first dibs as he's yelling at him that he's Clayton, and that Tony just starts fighting him. But that's not the worst kind of dismantling that goes on. He's talking about, like, you think, what do you think you're owed? This is what we do. These are the risks we take. Sorry you couldn't handle it. He's talking about how he used him. He's like, no, I partnered with you. This was always the deal. Same with Rhodes, as Rhodey's right. And they both blast him in a nice panel right there. And when he says, this is what when I say this is what we do, I don't mean fighting with fists and grit and blah, blah, blah. And I don't mean risking our lives, even though you have a hard time swallowing that one these days. Look at me when I'm talking to you, as he rips his helmet off and Rhodey fucking catches it. And he's like, it means straining ourselves and our bonds in order to do the hard thing, meaning the right thing, the most right thing we can. And sometimes we break things. And Tony's like, I've broken a lot. But we try and repair after we've done the thing that's right. That's what we do. That's what I do. I'm not going to say sorry for that anymore. It's like, that's interesting. Granted, Tony does have that kind of, like, arrogance that gets him in trouble, and that is on display here, but it is also intriguing that he's like, yes, there are hard things that I have to do to try and do the right thing, and sometimes it's harder than certain other kind of characters out there, depending upon how Tony's process goes about and what he needs to do. And you definitely see that arrogance there, but he is saying stuff that makes sense with what's been going on. And he's like, if you're not up for that kind of mission statement, then welcome back to being a piece of shit, Clayton. And Spy Master's like, oh, you have a speech for me too on that? He's like, nah, fuck that shit. You ain't worth it. And he's like, ouch. Okay, Cobalt Man, if you please. And Cobalt Man's like, which ring? It's like, Tony's like, this is where we probably lose. He's like, yeah, I still like what you said to Carl or Clayton or whatever. Thanks, Rhodey. I mean it. Thank you for being here. You got it, pal. How about I destroy you with my smallest finger? As Cobalt Man then casts people into eternal darkness, but it blasts past Tony and Rhodey and instead gets Carl, Spymaster, and the rest of his groupies as they're like, ah! And then they pretty much get sucked in and like, what the fuck's going on? It's like, okay, they're gone. And Tony's like, why'd you do that? And we see that Cobalt Man takes off the helmet and we see that it's Riri Williams. And she's like, yeah, they're the bad guys. She's like, okay. Tony's like, what the fuck? And of course, they ask what she's doing here, and she's pretty much doing the exact same thing that they are. Tony's like, that's extremely dangerous. You could have got yourself killed. And Rhodey's like, that's literally what we did, Tony. I fucking love that. And he's like, yeah, fuck, damn it. I understand that that's a good point, but... Granted, both... Tony at least went in with some kind of help and backup, knowing that, like, if he did this completely by himself, he would probably be killed. Riri, it looks like, was doing it by herself, too. I say looks like because I'm not completely... I don't have all the information of how she was doing this. And he's like, well, you could have come to me. And it's like, did you come to me for help? It's like, okay, second point taken. But it's like, we both see them acting as, like, Tony's worst selves in this kind of moment of them not talking to other people about stuff and thinking that they're the ones that need to take on this stuff by themselves. And because, see, it's really interesting that we got that really good bit as, like, Tony was, like, talking about, like, the best parts of, like, what they had to do and, like, doing it with Rhodey. He's like, yes, that's why you needed that. And here's the thing. If you linked up with Riri, this could have gone better. And then, of course, she heard that, like, Tony was going after the rings, you weren't in a coma, and they ask where she sent Spymaster and his boys because they'd never seen the black light ring used like that. And she used a certain kind of amplitude to create an Einstein-Rosen bridge directly to the Dark Force dimension because she had used computer simulations for that. It's like, that's really non-specific. And she's like, I have a better way of telling you if I disintegrated them, but I didn't want to do that. And they're like, let's get out of this alley because it's smelling kind of gross. Yeah, that's like aerosol particulate residue from the portal. And Tony's like, gross. And then we get into pretty much a really interesting kind of interaction as Riri's like, I want to keep the rings and do them for something to help and save the world. But she never gets into the specifics. And the thing is, Tony hardly gets into the specifics himself too because he's like going even faster than a mile a minute in his head. And, of course, he talks about how he's got a ruptured spleen, but they got to hash this out. And she's like, why don't you trust me? And then he's like, I do, but those things can be insidious. And she's like, all right, describe the quantum interference. And she's trying to turn it into a kind of science contest. And Rhodey's like, we're all on the same side here. And he's like, Tony's bringing up what goes on in your mind when you wear those rings. She's like, I just worked for like a few hours and I saved your life with it. And Tony starts bringing up that he was going through source control, bankrupt me, and the money doesn't mean a thing, but the violence and the trauma, those are indelible, the scars are lasting, and of course Riri knows this because of her whole origin of losing her friend. And let's see here. The thing is, he's fine with it, it's worth it, unless the most dangerous weapon that he was going for, the rings, is still out there. And here's the thing, that it gets really kind of nutty and tips me more in Tony's side rather than Riri's, because she says, I've been studying these rings for years, I haven't stopped thinking about them. And Rhodey's like, why? That's honestly concerning. It's like, okay, is this Riri being able to understand this and try and think of ways to utilize these rings to save the world? Or are the rings implanting some kind of an idea in her head that would be utilized by her to do some other kind of unspeakable thing? And she's talking about how they don't have to be a weapon, and I agree with that. However, we don't know what's kind of going on with this. And the thing is, Tony brings up, all right, let's do this. Let's work together. And at first he brings up a compromise. You take 5, I take 5. We collaborate and everything. And she's like, I won't horse trade like this. I'm like, why does it have to be all or nothing? And she's like, why don't you trust me? Because you just said that you've been thinking about these things for years, and we know that these rings can corrupt your mind for things. It's like, yet that's not brought up. Granted, they've been talking about that. And It's funny because then Tony brings up the whole thing of like, you're not trusting me either. And she's bringing up that you're like, I understand and respect that you're predisposed to destroy the rings. I know you're against the idea that it could help people. Then convince me. Why do I need to waste my time doing that? It's like, no. How does that waste your time of being like, how, like, literally, it's the base, like, if you were doing a thesis on something, that is your basis. You are going to mess with these rings. You say that they can help and save the world. How? Why? Like, what's going on there? And Tony brings up because the rings have the power to destroy worlds and destroy you. And then she brings up Oppenheimer and everything like that. And Tony building this suit with nobody over the shoulder. But I need my handheld. Why? What if the tables were turned? Let's see. Because at the time that Tony was making the armor, at like the original point, it wasn't sentient. We have gotten into places where that armor became sentient and created a whole host of problems due to other kind of extenuating factors. And the thing is, he brings up that Reed Richards, the Avengers, they'd be pounding on his door. And Riri said, no, they wouldn't. They'd trust you. And I'm like, no? I'm like looking throughout the like history of the Marvel comics, and I'm like, the Avengers and Reed Richards would trust Tony to a point. But if you gave him some kind of weird fucking thing that he's like, I'm just gonna fucking tinker with this. I mean, shit, he made a clone of Thor during the Civil War. That kind of fucked up with some people's trust. It's like, what the hell? And of course, Rhodey brings up why she has to do this in secret and everything like that. And she's like, did I say that? I'm not going to hoard them in the dark alone. All I'm asking is to keep them. Because I have a vision for this, a damn good one, and I want to run with it now. It's like, alright then. And she brings up that she's a hero too, and I think I could save the world with these things. And Rhodey's gonna said something. He's like, alright, take them. I trust you. Just promise to give me updates on your research. I'll update you, but I don't need to promise you anything. Fair enough. It's like the weirdest case of them just being like, alright, fine, we're gonna be assholes together, but let's see how this works out for you. Saying that they think they're in each other's good graces, was trying to be for once, we were just our normal difficult selves, makes sense, as we see Riri blast off with her armor, which looks nice there in that panel. And then Rhodey says he's worried, and he's like, Tony's like, me too, but it felt like the most right thing. And it's like, let's fix your spleen. Yeah, I'm ready to go home and piss off the rest of my friends. As it then ends off and gets us ready for the next celebration of the Golden Avenger 650th issue. So, this was interesting because I'm like, I did not expect that turn with Cobalt Man, and that Riri would be there, and that she would want the rings. That is definitely going to be an interesting kind of plot point to see how that goes forward, because I do not see that going that well. Not that Riri doesn't have the best of intentions, but if you say that she's been thinking about it for years, or thinking about those rings, I'm like, what are they doing? And the thing is, I don't think it's going to be as easy as what's going to be going on. It's definitely going to be something nutty, maybe not even that insidious at first, but we'll see how that kind of works out. Not that I don't trust Riri, it's just these rings fuck with people, and just letting somebody off by themselves. Granted, I am also a fan of Lord of the Rings. It's always like, you only gotta watch out for that shit, you never know what's gonna happen. But I did like that Tony was like, alright then, fine, we're at an impasse, do your shit, update us if you... Like, he wanted a promise of updates, but he's like, alright, guess, you'll update us if it feels like it. Just let her do her thing, and if it, like, starts getting nutty, they're just gonna have to kind of deal with it. And that definitely has kind of, like, been a thing throughout Tony's run of, like, understanding what he can control and can't control. And he can't control this at this point, so he'll just see how it works out, and then if it gets to a point that he has control over, like, helping or whatnot, he'll help. So that's definitely an avenue that'll be interesting, and I do like that, like, Tony and Rhodey kind of got into a better kind of groove after everything that they've kind of gone through, especially after Tony went nutty with the cosmic power and pretty much killed everybody and resurrected them again. So I am definitely interested to see how the 650th issue goes, and then what's going to be going on after that with Tony's status quo. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.